Minister, I want to ask you about students who have lost their jobs as a result of the pandemic that are now going to be pushed out of SUSI, or think that they're going to be pushed out of SUSI for accepting the pandemic unemployment payment. Can you please clear up that for people today, because it's causing a huge concern. Thank you, Minister.
Okay. Minister Harris.
Thanks very much, Deputy Conway-Walsh. Firstly, I should say I'm very proud that we live in a country where we did provide and have provided such significant income support to all people who lost jobs, including students. And I think some of the commentary, certainly not from Deputy Conway-Walsh, but from some elements in recent weeks or months to suggest that that was somewhat inappropriate, or that students shouldn't be claiming the PUP, shows a huge lack of understanding of the impact that this pandemic has had on young people, and indeed people of all ages as well. As Deputy Conway-Walsh is aware, the Student Support Scheme has been established since 2012, and it's a vital support for people accessing third level. Almost 101,000 applications were received by SUSI for grant support in the 2020-2021 academic year. Just over 79,000 applications were assessed as eligible for grant support, with a projected total cost for this year of €370 million. Applications for the 2021-2022, the new academic year, are now open, and to date we've received 46,000 applications. I'm pleased to say that 28,500 of these applications have now been assessed, and 26,500 have been approved for support. So that's an early indication. There's a very high success rate in people applying and being deemed eligible. In relation specifically to the Pandemic Unemployment Payment (PUP), this has been treated as reckonable income since it was introduced in March 2020. That's not a new development. Income from the COVID-19 payment has the same standing and is treated in a similar fashion to other Department of Social Protection payments, such as Job Seekers Benefit or Job Seekers Allowance. It's really important that there is a consistency of approach for all students. We can't decide one student getting one social welfare payment is more or less important or more or less entitled than somebody else. A student or a family on Job Seekers Benefit, for example, or Job Seekers Allowance or lone parents benefit, must be treated the same as a student or family on the pandemic unemployment payment. However, I do want to say, and I'm going to run out of time here shortly, but we do have what's called a change of circumstance, and perhaps I can come back in on that, because there is a mechanism for a student who had been receiving the pandemic unemployment payment, or their family who now will not be into the future as the economy reopens, to tell the SUSI system that they have a change of circumstance, and I'll perhaps expand on that in a moment.
Minister Deputy.
Yeah, thank you, Minister. I know you agree it's unacceptable that students would be pushed out and denied SUSI grants because they accepted the PUP, and I would treat it as an exceptional needs payment, but nobody should be penalising for accepting the PUP, especially not working students that lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Now, this is where the equality comes into it. If these students were working as normal or under EWSS, they would be entitled to deduct a holiday earnings of $4,500 when applying for SUSI. At the very least, this deduction should be applied to the PUP for students. In committee, I highlighted to you that I thought it was strange that the demand for SUSI this year was in line with 2019, despite the state being in lockdown for much of the year and so many people out of work. This only adds up if many other students will be pushed out of qualifying for SUSI because of accepting the PUP payment when they lost their employment.
Conway-Walsh, so the first thing I'd say is, so far what we're seeing is a very significant number of people who are applying being granted the SUSI grant, and we're monitoring this on a weekly basis, and we will continue to monitor it. And I will reflect on the point the Deputy makes about the holiday earnings disregard, and I think there may be something in that, should that need arise as we see the system develop. We do have to have a consistency of approach in terms of one social welfare payment and the other, otherwise there would be a gross unfairness to students who are receiving other social welfare benefits. I do want to say, though, we do have what we call the change of circumstances, and over 10,000 applicants declared a change of circumstances in the last year, and some 40% of them related to COVID-19. The scheme has shown a flexibility in addressing these issues. So for the next academic year, an application will be assessed on the gross income from all sources for January to December. However, and this is crucial, if an applicant or a family member has experienced a change in circumstances during 2021, they can apply for their SUSI to be assessed or reassessed under the change of circumstances. So such a change in circumstances would include perhaps no longer being in receipt of the pandemic unemployment payment because perhaps the part-time job has come back, as the hospitality sector, the retail sector, and others open. And such a change in circumstance would have to continue for the duration of the course or the foreseeable future. So we're monitoring this on a weekly basis, and I'll reflect on the Deputy's points. Okay,
Minister, so would this include a change of circumstances? This note from this mother: I have 3 boys on PUP, still in college and living at home, one in Maynooth, Dublin and Sligo. If PUP is not disregarded, it pushes me over the threshold threshold, I will not be able to take out a loan for 30,000 to pay for their fees and accommodation. And we must remember as well that an awful lot of students have lost money due to accommodation. Now, is that going to be taken into consideration when applying for SUSI? Is that going to be counted? I spoke to one mother yesterday, 4,500 she's down for absolutely nothing in terms of paying for accommodation. So is there going to be flexibility? I think the key to this is if you were to give flexibility to SUSI to be able to respond to these cases, then we would be able to ensure that those barriers were removed for preventing further education. Thank you, Minister.
Finish.
Yeah, I am satisfied, and without getting into the individual case, because I don't have all of the details, I am satisfied that the legislation and the regulations do allow for that change of circumstance, where a student who was receiving, to use your phrase, an exceptional payment for a period of time during the pandemic, or indeed their family were, their mum or their dad, and due to perhaps work resuming or changes, they may no longer receive that payment. They need to be able to tell SUSI that, and SUSI needs to be able to take that into consideration. So I do want the Deputy to know we monitor on a weekly basis how the SUSI scheme is going for this year. We will continue to do that, and I will be willing to act if an anomaly or a difficulty arises. What I am seeing so far, though, is a lot of people applying, a lot of people being granted, and a change of circumstances mechanism in place.